Welcome back to DM-Nastics, the gym for dungeon masters to work out their minds. I'm one of your hosts, DM Neil, aka Jote Maniac.
And it's me, your other host, DM Celeste, aka Sea Witch.
Whoa! And this
Whoa!
is son of a. I'm gonna have to edit that because that was way too loud.
You screamed.
Bad. I did.
It was good.
All right, we
So
are excited because this is the first episode we are recording with us back on the main feed.
Wow!
It may be the first one you're hearing because, fun fact, bringing a bunch of episodes back into a different feed is way more complicated than you'd think it is.
It's so complicated. It's like fighting with ancient code.
Yeah, it's like, can you do it? Yes. That's not hard. Doing it correctly in the way that you would like them to be presented, in the order that you would like them to be in, very difficult.
Yes. Yep.
So hopefully this may be the first, it may be the 50th. It's hard to tell, but either way, we're back here in the main feed,
Welcome.
which means this is, again, your one-stop shop for probably hearing my voice more than you want to. But that is why I try and get really good guests and stay quiet most of the time. Now that's my insider baseball.
Whoa,
I bring in
all right.
smarter. I have also, so we're waxing poetically on our return. I have also realized that because of that, I don't make a great guest.
Yes, because you're too used to interviewing people.
I am. Yeah. I've realized several times that I'm not good at being a guest. It takes a second because I do, by default, act more interested in what they're saying, but realize that's not why I'm there.
For a charity stream I organized once, we had a panel that was all about how to interview people. So we had a bunch of interviewers on our, and it absolutely degraded into like a group interview. It was ridiculous.
Oh, that's great. So it's been a while. Things have changed, but some things stay the same.
Yes.
And that means that we're going to look at an article with as clickbaity as a name as I probably have found in a long time.
I was scared when I hovered over the link. I was scared.
Oh, because even the URL is scary.
Yes.
Okay, so tell me, what is the title of the article we are going through today?
Yeah, so for this very fun article, we are reading Dungeons & Dragons rules only sadistic dungeon masters use. So yeah, again, in the URL, just to say, it's Dragons rules hardest, harsh, difficult, hardcore is the URL. So my God, let's buckle up.
Oh, this is so good. And one of the things that we first approached was, okay, so what's going on here? Where are these coming from? Are these house rules? And the best thing about it is they're not. Most of them are just optional rules from previously printed WotC material, including just straight out of the Dungeon Master's Guide.
Yeah, I was like, I've never heard of this. I'm like, oh, right. It's just right there, an optional rule in the DMG.
Just from jump. And the idea that someone could have been playing in games with these rules for like the past 5 years terrifies
terrifying.
me. Yes.
Yeah.
So speaking of terrifying, what is the first rule that we have?
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I should also mention this was written by Derek Garcia. So thank you, Derek, for this gift. All right. So let's see. The first rule on the list, sadistic D&D rules, sanity score.
Yes.
Which is a cool one. I remember reading about this because it's like an optional rule. So if you do want to delve into mythos style, Call of Cthulhu-esque games, there's an optional rule to have a sanity score in the game, which obviously, as you encounter horrors, drops very, very quickly.
So this one is interesting because I don't always say this, but one of the things I don't like is the way that this is presented, because it's a better way to probably title it would be a sanity attribute.
Yeah.
Because it becomes your 7th attribute along with your other traditional 6, where either you're adding 3 more points to a point buy system or just adding an 11 to the standard array. So like you could have a really strong sanity score or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I would wonder how someone's like would implement this as a long-term play, because then there's the one person who doesn't have a problem and then the one person who does have a problem when those attributes come up. It's the same thing as like if you had cliffs that everyone has to climb every session. There are some players that feel like that's great. I love it. And the other player who just keeps falling.
Like, I'm a wizard. Why? So that's a good point, saying, already, because you're already stacked, right? Like for attribute points, it's already so hard to get everything you need for all the different, whatever your class is. So adding a 7th one in there and not getting too many more points to like add, that would be scary. And I like, so some of the suggested sanity saving throws in the text of this role, just seeing a creature from the far realm or other alien realms for the first time. So that's, I guess, every time you see an aberration, you're making a sanity. Like, that's buck wild. I feel like in certain campaigns that would get very dicey very quickly.
Yeah, especially, it'd be interesting because then you really do have to find ways to implement the idea of like, am I losing it? Or are you giving me advantage or disadvantage because I've experienced it before or not experienced it before? Do you have bigger penalties if I have a higher score and I do fail? Are the penalties less because I have a lower score and I fail? Because I just can't. Because ability damage isn't really a big thing.
No, not in 5e.
It feels very punitive if you were to implement it, which that's not on the list because no one's written it down anymore. Right. But the idea of taking that away from a player, wow.
Yeah, that's scary. I feel like there's so many challenges already in traditional 5e that adding this on top of it, I agree. This is a sadistic rule.
Yes.
So, well done, Derek. You're correct.
Speaking of well done, Derek, one of the other things is that as inflammatory as a lot of this language is regarding just about everything we're going to talk about, Derek does do a good job of also setting up like, hey, you should really check with the people at your table.
Hey, make sure people want this before you do this, you jerk.
Please check in. Also, I love... they may want to experience a style of campaign that evokes the works of George R.R. Martin or H.P. Lovecraft instead of J.R.R. Tolkien or R.A. Salvatore. Yeah. I'm like, that's an interesting pairing.
That is an interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So another interesting one.
This one.
The addition of massive damage.
So you knew more about this. I feel like you dug into it. So break this down because this sounds horrible.
So one of the things about 5th edition, and I feel like you'll echo the same, and a lot of people have, is that lower levels in 5th edition are tough.
They
deadly. Are deadly. My number one thought is, it's the bugbear that has the massive damage, especially if they surprise you. And basically, like, even your most robust of barbarians is done.
It's called like brutal surprise or something along those lines.
Yeah, one hit. And it's often why you see a single session getting players to the 2nd level, and 2 sessions you're at 3rd level, because now you have more of your character traits and you have more health, really. Yeah. Massive damage is if a player... And now, in theory, this would work both directions, but the likelihood that it does is very low. But basically, if a creature takes more than half their hit points, they roll on what's called a system shock table. And again, this is just in the Dungeon Master's Guide as an optional rule. When you roll on that table, you roll a d10. The best case scenario is that you cannot take reactions until the end of your next turn. The worst case is that you now have none of your hit points and you are not stable and you are rolling death saves.
God. I mean, I like the fiction of it because it makes a lot of sense, right? If you're cut in half, like, of course, like, do you survive that or do you auto die, but dang, that's, that is scary.
Like, at lower levels, the likelihood it would happen and kill a player are so high.
Frequent. Yeah.
But at the same time, the likelihood that you could cause it to an enemy is much higher.
Right.
But the second you hit like a substantial CR, the likelihood that I could even, line up a combination of player skills and abilities and everything like that to do massive damage. Let's say it's even an adult dragon. The likelihood that I would hit half of their hit points.
I know, because they average, like 200 hit points. So
then the only people that it can happen to at that point are the players.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
No.
And that's gnarly because, like usually a monster will be like, whoa, like big critical move, your rechargeability or your once per day right at the top of the fight. So somebody's going to go down automatically, basically first round, right?
What if we continue the dragon? I mean, it's Dungeons and Dragons.
Dragons, yes.
If you think of that rechargeability, let's say, I'm picking random. Let's say it's a red. That's your most common. And it's the fire breath.
Yeah.
That means several.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Roll on that table.
Yeah.
Woof.
Woo!
No,
Hope it's not your clerk.
No.
That's all I'm saying. Oh,
no.
God. Yeah, that's a nasty one.
Okay. Speaking of nasty, well, how about this next one?
Oh, yes. Sadistic D&D rules. Lingering wounds. I think what I really like about this is that the article has such a cool piece of art that's very grisly and really driving this home. Yeah, okay, so lingering wounds rules much more harmful to a player than to monsters. Okay, first sentence, so right there we know. All right. So this rule suggests that Dungeon Master roll for a wound when a character suffers a critical hit, when it drops to 0 HP but isn't killed outright, or when it fails a death saving throw by 5 or more. So then the wound could be like a cosmetic effect, like a scar, you lose your eye, that sort of stuff. So it just really kicks it up to a whole other level when you get hurt here.
Wow. Okay, so if you're looking for it in the Dungeon Master's Guide, it's actually referred to as lingering injuries, and you roll a d20. Do you have a d20 available? Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I do. Sorry, had to get my tray. Okay, here we go.
Also, just how terrifying do death save? How much more terrifying do death saves become?
If you fail by...
Because, yeah.
God. Okay, I got a 6. What happens to me?
Oh, well, unfortunately, you now have an internal injury. Whenever you attempt an action in combat, you must make a DC 15 Constitution saving throw. On a failed save, you lose your action and can't use reactions until the start of your next turn. The injury heals if you receive magical healing or if you spend 10 days doing nothing but resting. I held my reading voice for most of that.
That could be so bad. Every freaking time you take an action?
Until you've received healing magic or rested for 10 days.
Which would be fine if you're like, start adventure stuff. What if you're like in a dungeon, like deep in a dungeon? There's like, that's bad. And you just can't get out. Whoo. Again, hope you have a cleric, because dang. Wow, that's rough. Okay, I'm going to roll another one. I want to see what else. Okay, I got a 14 this time. What is my lingering injury?
Okay, so I assume not as bad. But now
hopefully.
Instead, you've hit 14 to 16, which is a festering wound. Oh no. No, it's bad.
Okay.
Your hit point maximum is reduced by 1 every 24 hours the wound persists. If your hit point maximum drops to 0, you die. The wound heals if you receive magical healing. Alternatively, someone can tend to the wound and make a DC 15 Wisdom Medicine check once every 24 hours. After 10 successes, the wound heals.
And there's no way to recover those hit points, right? The maximum hit point reduction. Dang. That's worse, I think. I don't know. No, they're all bad.
They're
bad.
all bad.
Good job, Derek. Wow. Yeah, I can't imagine a group playing. Okay, next time my players get all cocky and say that D&D is too easy, I'm going to whip one of these out for sure. Woo! All right.
Okay. So this one I feel like gets implemented. This is the first one that I know that I've personally implemented at times and definitely seen implemented at tables. But this is critical fumbles. It's hard not to, and I think Derek put it in a way that I was surprised, like really hit home.
Yeah.
It complicates things because now we're rolling more for rolls that have already happened. So your rolls turn into more rolls, and not in a real fun way. Like it's not exploding dice.
Right.
It's just bad things are happening.
More bad things. Yeah.
But what's interesting is even if it goes both ways to have that, that parity between the two, it doesn't matter because then he brought up the point of like, okay, so you roll for, again, let's say it's this dragon, and how far do you want to take it, and how does that not cheapen things for your players? Because it's like, it doesn't matter that I'm good, I have a good character, or I'm a good player.
Yeah.
The dragon had bad luck and then died. That's not fun.
Right. So usually it's not going to be the DM that's rolling these. So this is for sure going to be mostly on the players again.
Yeah, I think the only time that it's fun is like the occasional time it happens when you're at lower levels. It's a mob of goblins, let's say, or something like that. One errantly shoots the other, and it makes sense. But I realize that the only reason it makes sense is because narratively, it makes sense. Whereas again, because the other thing about the red dragon idea is it's going to roll once, and your party's going to roll how many times?
A billion, right? So if you're doing a solo monster, it just doesn't. You just can't do it. Yeah.
Have you ever played with crit fumbles?
I have, yeah. So I have definitely had players break weapons, or really fall prone, or just totally eat it, or like stab their friends. So I absolutely play with this rule. Yes.
Yeah. I think it's the second layer, because I don't know that I have a problem with a critical fail.
Yeah.
I think a critical fumble, like maybe that's where, verbally we can have that distinction. I don't think I have a problem with the crit fail. Like, you roll a 1, you fail. Because in the same way, when you roll a 20, you get a crit. I'm okay with both sides of those. It's when you have to do additional rolling because you rolled a 1. That's probably where it's getting off. Because I know I've listened to some of the like older school style games, and it's like, oh, okay, so then you're gonna roll. Oh, you rolled super low on this D100 table. You died.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm just like, I don't know that I like that.
See, that's how I feel whenever I play like DCC RPG. And I'm like, if something goes wrong, it just escalates so quickly. But that's also kind of part of the charm of that system in particular. But I don't think that is like built into D&D 5e. So yeah, I feel like this could get too harsh pretty quickly if you just go rules as written and you don't have any, arbitrating force.
All right, I'm ready. I'm excited for this one.
Oh God, this is horrible. Yeah, okay. Sadistic D&D rules, randomly generated stats. Okay, I think it's been since, I don't know, high school. Like, I had a DM that made me do this, and yeah, it's awful.
So this is, I mean, and not to knock it, but I understand the potential base level idea is that, okay, I've never thought of it this way, and it's totally with us being the two people that came up with the quantum ogre idea. Quantum is what we're going to focus on here. It's a quantum leap principle. Yeah, that you just like randomly inhabited a person in this world. Yeah. And like you have no bearings on anything that is this person, and so. In previous editions, one of the ways that a person would generate their stats is to roll 3d6 in order.
Yep.
I would just grab 3d6. Yep. I would roll. That was my strength. And so because of that, and I'm not going to get the percentages right, they're napkin math and it's ballparking, but I know that it was bards because of this and the stat requirements that they had to be the class, basically around 1% of characters were bards. Yeah. Because you had to have X in this stat. You had
to be good at this stat and that stat and that stat. And it was like impossible.
Oh, and just like one person gets lucky and the rest fail miserably. Yeah. So you just have, do you have one person that's so far ahead, or do you even have one person who's so far behind?
Right. And then this sucks too. If you're like, I really want to play a wizard, you think that in your heart, and then you roll like terrible intelligence and terrible like wisdom and stuff. You're like, well, all right, I guess not. Or, that's so. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this.
Yeah.
As somebody who rolls very poorly and is extremely unlucky, I know this has never worked out for me. And I do have friends in my life who this would work out for great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and stat rolling is interesting because I would say that it only really works with more experienced groups because I think it just that evens things out a little bit. But if it's everyone joining for their first time, I would say just do stat arrays or point buys or stuff like that.
And it feels nice, too, to have a party that, like, oh, I'm good at this. Like, this is the thing I'm good at in the party. And then somebody else has a different thing that they are definitely good at. And if everybody has a thing they can be proud of, then everybody feels happy. But if somebody just whiffs across the board or, one person just outshines everybody else, that causes animosity, I feel like. And eventually that will just devolve.
Yeah. And there's so many ways that you could do stat rolling that is far less punitive than this. Yeah. One is certainly letting the person roll 6 stats and letting them choose where they go. From there, it's letting people roll 4 dice and drop the lowest. One of the ones I do is I like letting people roll a d6 plus 1, which basically changes the range from 2 to 7 instead of 1 to 6, which means your minimum is 6, and then you can go from there. I've done a dice pool.
I like doing power rolling is what I call it. You roll 4 d6 and then you re-roll any ones that you get, and then you select the 3 highest. So.
Yeah, I've done a pool, which is fun just to see what people will do. Well, so basically, every stat has 4d6, but you can move them, leaving a minimum of 3 at 1. So you could just super stack the one you want to be really big, and then go from there. But yeah, it's rough.
It's rough. You're right. This is rough. You're right, Derek. That's sadistic to make your players do that.
Almost as rough
is
none other than encumbrance.
Yes. I like this quote. Encumbrance is, another way some DMs exercise cruelty. It is true. It is true.
Essentially, a character can carry up to 15 times their strength score in pounds, which is high enough that most characters don't even need to worry about it. But I hope you don't want gold. That's really where it boils down to.
Yeah. This is encumbrance is really great for particular types of games. Like if you have, a gritty group that's all about like hex crawling through wilderness, and you really do want like some of these, especially like old school style, like dungeon crawls or something, it becomes an interesting thing to have resource management and manage what you have and have to craft things or save things or hoard things, right? But that type of gaming hasn't really been introduced in 5e. There really aren't mechanics to support it, or I feel like adventures written to support it. So forcing people to put that in their games feels like kind of cramming a different game right inside of 5e.
And I also like that one of basically the suggested solutions are, and they're almost absolutely required, are pack animals and hirelings.
Yeah.
Like people to carry your stuff.
Yeah.
People or creatures that will carry your stuff because, the example was like, okay, so you're a fighter, you're super strong, but you also put plate mail on.
Yep.
You also carry a 2-handed sword.
Yep.
You also
that adds up. Yeah.
And now you're running out of the ability to carry anything.
I am 100% guilty of pretty much every campaign I've ever run. Around level 4, I always give the party a bag of holding because I, as a DM, do not want to deal with having to ask, how much stuff are you carrying? Or listen to conversations about who's carrying what or whatever. I get bored, so I just give them a bag of holding every time. But yeah, because I even as a GM, it would feel cruel for me to have to track all of this stuff. So as a player, yes, extra cruel.
Oh, and then you get disadvantaged the second you go over it, which means any spellcaster is staring down the barrel of every concentration check being a disadvantage, and you start losing mobility.
And wizards cannot carry a lot. I have been hit with encumbrance rule as a wizard too many times. You weak, like, even if your strength is probably 8, right, as a wizard times 15, that is not a lot, because even like an adventurer's pack on its own, which most people have, weighs like 30 pounds. 30 to 50 pounds. So that's half your stuff anyway. Yeah, it's rough. It's rough out there. Your spell book weighs like 5 pounds. So, yeah.
Yeah, the only time encumbrance in it, and it was in a video game that I thought was funny to me. It wasn't fun. It was just funny. Is I was playing Oblivion, and I got shot by an arrow, and it like stays in you sometimes, and it encumbered me. And I couldn't move, so I pulled it out and I shot it back, and then I was able to move again. And that's just very funny to me. But I don't think that'd be funny in a D&D game.
Yeah, I think this is just fresh in my mind. I've been replaying Valheim. Which is a brutal Viking game. And encumbrance is my bane constantly. You're like, dang, I can't carry this ore. What the heck?
Literally so many games where, so there's a small game and it's like an 8-bit and I've been playing it. It's called Dome Keeper. So it's like a roguelike where you have your dome, you fight things off, you go down. The same deal though. I can only carry so much stuff and then I'm slowed down. I'm angry.
Yeah, trudging slowly to your base before, your exhaustion runs out. Like, God, I just need this wood, please.
Come on. Yes. So that,
agree,
dear listeners, is the list of things that you want if you want to make your game words like sadistic,
harsh,
difficult, hardcore.
Amazing. This was a great article. Derek, you killed it. Good job. I agree wholeheartedly with all of these.
And if you liked this, you can always go to your podcatcher of choice, leave us a rating and review. It helps us tremendously. That's how this works.
And also, just let people know, like, yay, I'm happy. DM-Nastics is back as part of the main feed. So people know that it's back, right? So your reviews and, stars on Spotify and stuff really help us out. And of course, if you want to reach out and tell us about like horrible sadistic rules in your home games that maybe you've invented or your DM has inflicted on you, you can always email us at dmnastics@gmail.com. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at DMNastics, Neil at JoteMoniac, and me at C. Conowitch. And for everything else on the network, you can visit blockpartypodcastnetwork.com.
And a huge thank you to the bards over at Bombarded for our intro and outro music, and you can find more about them at bombardedcast.com. And I actually had them do a new intro for the main feed as well. So all the music is just from the same people.
Oh, that's delightful.
Yeah, I messaged and they were like, absolutely. So there you go. But with that, let's head to the post-workout cool-down and stretch with the light bulb.
Light bulb.
So today on the light bulb, we're going to be talking about epic encounters from Steamforged Games, where basically it's an encounter in a box. Like, that is the idea. Everything you need to create an epic encounter for your role-playing game.
Wow.
So basically, it's a one-stop shop. You buy this box, which I'm trying to open.
It's nice. It's a tight box. We can hear it.
Yeah.
It's good. Good packaging.
Everything I need. So basically, there's a booklet to help me run the encounter itself. There's a fold-out map to just drop down. I mean, not the world's greatest quality map, but in the sense that you're dealing with paper, not all these elaborate things.
But it's already designed to your specs you need, so you don't have to draw, sad little butt trees or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And then the real kicker is every miniature I need.
Whoa! Oh, snap, that's cool. Okay, I've always walked by this booth at conventions and been like, I like all the packaging. I like what this is, but I don't understand what it is, or I have to get back to working the booth. So I'm really glad you showed me what is in these.
Yeah, so basically I've got 4 goblins riding spiders.
Cool.
I've got 2 sets of goblins that are on top of each other. One,
amazing.
Then they're
like trench coat style.
No, the top goblin is shooting a slingshot.
Oh man.
I have several with whips. I have several others. Some terrifying worm creature, and what looks like to be the goblin boss.
Oh, cool.
Because this is the Goblin Czar, because this is called the Labyrinth of the Goblin Czar.
Whoa.
So yeah, it's just everything in a single go. So my thought is, I mean, there's a lot of practical uses for this. Number one is at a convention. because everything I need is now in this box. So when I show up,
Easy to put in a suitcase and go.
easy to put in a suitcase. As long as I got a set of dice,
Right.
we can all start playing.
Cool.
Literally everything a person would need is right here.
Oh man, that's great. Like if you have like a standard one-shot game, that you run, like linking up with one of these would be clutch.
Well, the other thing is like if I go through all the time and effort to paint it, I can still put them all back in this box, and they're as protected as they were prior to painting. Again, this box goes with me wherever I want. The box itself is pretty sturdy, so I think it is designed with the idea of travel in mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, Steamforged game, epic encounters.
Well, it's cool. And so each of these encounters, it seems like there's a lot of minis in there. It looks like they're around $50 average for each encounter. So it seems like you get a great value with it. So that's super cool. What a great pick.
Yeah, I would say that initial price does seem like a sticker shock, but definitely really look at what miniatures it has, because that's where.
Yeah, considering how many minis you just showed me in that box, that is a great deal.
And I am definitely feeling like I want to reach out to them and tell them about how great they are, and tell them they should send me their stuff.
Yeah, yes, please. Be like, we would love to talk about how cool these are. Thank you.
These are there's a ton of them out there, and I really think that there's at least one that you could find that, again, it's tough because like you always want to find that one mini that's just the perfect mini, but oftentimes when you look at something like this where they're mass produced in a way that nothing else can mimic, then you get like Arena of the Undead Horde, Hall of the Orc King, Chambers of the Serpent Folk. Some of these have got to be in your wheelhouse, I'm sure of it.
These are got to be like already, for Tomb of Annihilation or whatever you need.
Boom.
Yeah, man.
So there you go. So check those out. We'll have a link in the show notes. And of course, with that, we'll turn out the lights and head out of the gym. But before we go, I want to implore you, the listener, to join the forums, the Discord, Twitter, and anywhere else you can find us and take part in these challenges, exercises, and other amazing conversations being had.
To do that, head over to dungeonmasterblock.freeforums.net and try some DM-Nastics so your players don't ask, do you even lift?